Welcome to Instant Deck Techs. The aim of this series is to give you a short, concise guide on how to build a certain deck. It won't cover every card, but we'll go through all the categories and go over the types of cards needed to make the deck work. Any card mentioned will be down in the description below. The commander of this deck is Hinata Dawn Crowned. It is 1 blue, red and a white for a 4/4 legendary creature, Kirin Spirit with flying and trample. It has spells you cast cost 1 generic less to cast for each target, and spells your opponents cast cost 1 generic more to cast for each target. Okay, firstly let's go over what the deck is trying to do and importantly how it wins. This is going to be a spells heavy deck. We'll primarily be using the cost reduction effect on Hinata in this build. There are some really interesting and frankly broken things that you can do with it. Take cards like Curse of the Swine or Disorder in the Court. With Hinata in play, we only have to pay the coloured mana in the spell's casting cost. Then because X is always its own individual target, we can choose as many as we want and not have to spend any more mana. Hinata sees all the targets you've picked and reduces the cost by that amount. But it doesn't just work with X spells, the cost reduction works on any spells that targets. So with Magma Opus, if you ping 4 targets then tap down 2 creatures, it will cost just a blue and a red mana. Then take something like Blatant Thievery. With the cost reduction, this only costs 1 blue to cast in a 4-player game. 4 mana to steal our opponent's best creatures is just fantastic. We'll be combining these cards with awesome Spellslinger payoffs to help us draw cards, create a board state, and win the game. Worth mentioning as well, before we dive into the different sections of the deck, that there is actually some nice redundancy available to us. Battlefield Thaumaturge is effectively a second copy of Hinata in the deck, and then Elementalist Palette can quickly generate us a load of extra mana that we can dump into some of our X spells. Kicking off with some card draw, as we have blue we won't be spoilt for options, however there are some nice synergistic bits that we can run. Any card draw spell that says target player on them is reduced by Hinata, which is fantastic. These are all solid cards in any blue deck, and them all costing 1 cheaper will mean we can refill our hand and have a much easier time at double spelling in a turn. For some additional card draw, we can look at Archmage Emeritus and Whirlwind of Thought. Both will draw us a card whenever we cast an instance or sorcery, which as you probably will notice will be a very large portion of the deck. Moving over to our ramp, as we're going to be running a lot of X spells and high mana value spells, we'll want a solid base. I would prioritise sources that make coloured mana, as Hinata will already be taking care of reducing a lot of the colourless requirements. Starting off with a base of Signets, Talismans and Diamonds will be a very good place to start. They're cheap to cast and easily fix our mana while ramping us ahead, perfect for what we're doing. For some spicier picks, in any deck like this that has the option of drawing a ton of cards, Thought Vessel is always a good shout. While more expensive to cast, Pyromancer's Goggles still gives us some important ramp, while importantly copying a red instant and sorcery spell, which will be very important when we get to our win-con section. There's also some good creatures that can help us ramp, with Birgi, Kykar and Storm-Kiln Artist all being great examples of this. They all effectively give us an extra mana that we can then use to cast more spells. When you add this to the cost reduction of Hinata, it should mean we have no issues casting some hugely expensive spells. The interaction is one area where this deck really shines. A lot of spells that target are also on removal, so as always you want at least 8 bits of interaction, but you can really fill up any other slots in the deck with this section and truly control the board. First up is effects that deal with multiple threats. Curse of the Swine and Meteor Blast are fantastic in this build. Those X costs we don't have to pay for with Hinata out, so we can turn all of our opponent's creatures into boars with Curse of the Swine for just 2 blue. Or we can ping any creature and our opponents for 4 damage for just 3 red mana with Meteor Blast. That is very, very powerful. For some bounce, we have Baral's Expertise and Distorting Wake. Again, with Hinata out, we're only going to be paying the blue pips of these spells. And for some more targeted removal, and a great way of taking out some utility lands, we have Volcanic Offering. If you have all the targets, then this can cost just 1 red mana. But it doesn't stop there. We also have plenty of removal for artifacts and enchantments as well, with cards like By Force, Heliod's Intervention and Crush Contraband. There is honestly just so many options for this commander. And then we also have some cards that can tap down all of our opponent's creatures or phase them out. This can serve 2 functions. At worst case, it's a 1 mana fog with Hinata out, stopping a lethal attack before it even gets started. But it can also be used offensively, by removing all our opponent's blockers so we can swing through with our own threats. When you combine those tappers with cards like Willbreaker, which makes us gain control of them, or cards like Dismiss into Dream, which just straight up kills them, makes for a very powerful combination, and is by far one of the most broken things that you can do in this deck. Moving over to our protection, to an extent a lot of this will double up with our interaction as well, but more is more. The crossover mainly comes in the form of counterspells. Remember, because counterspells target, we get the cost reduction on them as well, which makes Arcane Denial and Negate cost just a single blue mana. That reduction also works on some bigger counterspells with more targets, such as Mystic Confluence and Sublime Epiphany. Both of these spells could just cost blue with Hinata out. Hopefully this all shows how powerful this commander can be, and also why rocks that tap for blue, white and red are going to be very important. Unfortunately, it won't take your opponents too long to work out how strong Hinata is either, so suiting it up with a Lightning Greaves and a Swiftfoot Boots is probably going to be a very good idea. So, we've gone over some cool interactions with Hinata, let's move on to how you actually win the game. First up is cards that make creatures when we cast an instant or sorcery. Specifically, ones that check the mana value of the spell will be really nice. With all the X spells and the big mana spells that we're running, we should be able to make some really big creatures. Having one or two of these out should be able to make us a commanding board presence in no time. Next up is some direct damage X spells. There's plenty of these effects out there, but look for the ones that let you target multiple things to really get full value out of them. With the cost reduction from Hinata, combined with the ramp and some of the copy effects we'll be getting onto in a moment, these are a great way of finishing off an opponent or two. Talking of those copy effects, these are a really nice way of speeding up a win, and you can do some very stupid things with these cards, especially a 1000-Year Storm. They might be a little win more, but they are certainly fun. Another way we can win the game is with our opponent's win conditions. Cards like Mass Manipulation and Blatant Thievery let us take whatever they're trying to kill us with and turn them against them. Another great example of the cost reduction from Hinata doing a ton of work. For the combo lover out there, we have a solid option made up of cards the deck would be perfectly fine to run anyway. God Eternal Kefnet adds to the cost reduction of spells while also giving us an extra copy of that spell. Time Warp gives target player an extra turn. By itself, this can just give us the extra time we need to make a board state and swing through. Then, Scroll Rack is just a very good magic card that lets us filter our hand and get us what we need. When they are combined, however, Scroll Rack lets us keep putting Time Warp back on top of our deck. With Kefnet, we can keep casting the copy it makes, meaning we can take as many turns as we want. Rounding off the deck with some utility lands, as we're a 3-colour deck, we can't run too many lands that don't tap for a colour of mana. If you have them, then the channel lands are a solid place to start, but outside of those, and cards we've already mentioned, I like Mystic Sanctuary, as it can give us some great late game value by bringing back an important spell. The rest of your mana base will be very dependent on what you have available to you. We've recently released a video with some advice on building a deck with a budget mana base, which might be of help. Until next time, please like, share and subscribe, and let us know down in the comments if there are any commanders you'd like to see a deck tech on. Thank you very much for watching.